Okay, let's finish this six-sided die and talk about some of the choices that go into handwork and finishing. Here I've got two pieces of abrasive paper, 220 grit and 320 grit. 220 sandpaper is as aggressive as I would ever want to go. It's really aggressive sanding in this context. It's going to totally destroy any dimensional accuracy on the die, so please know that you're saying goodbye to that dimensional accuracy when you say hello to this sort of sandpaper. For us beginners, we're focused on a specific target. We're trying to get that seam to go away, and we're trying to get a mirror finish. If we were trying to hold on to dimensional accuracy, we would go all the way back to the cam and make edits there, and then recut an entirely new six-sided form. But we're just trying to have a bit of fun putting a mirror finish on this, so we're going to sand our way to the finish line. Start with the 220, the more aggressive grit, to get those seams to go away. And if you can use a figure-8 pattern, you can often avoid leaning too hard on one side more than the other. And if you haven't noticed yet, take note that I'm at the sink and I am wet sanding. I am using water on top of the sandpaper to carry the swarf, the small particles of aluminum, out of the teeth of the sandpaper. If you don't wet sand, especially with finer and finer grit sandpaper, you're likely to clog up the teeth of the sandpaper prematurely and feel like you have to throw the sheet away too soon. The other great upside to wet sanding is it's great at controlling dust. All of what would have been dust gets captured in the water rather than blowing off into the air. Also notice that I am not at the mill. When using abrasives, I am away from the mill somewhere else. The mill is just for cutting, not for abrasives. When you've taken off the seams with 220, and make sure they're really gone, you can't rush this step. When they are gone, then move on to the 320. The job of the 320 grit sandpaper is to make the scratches from the 220 grit sandpaper become smaller. Small enough that we can eventually polish them away. For us, polishing means finding the Dremel, loading the felt polishing tip, finding the tiny little Dremel wrench, locking the spindle and tightening that tip into place, and getting the bar of abrasive compound and putting it onto the felt pad and smearing it across the surface of your cube, and then continuing to smear until you actually lift it off, leaving behind a nice polished surface. It should start to gleam and almost look like a mirror. And keep in mind, this Dremel is now spinning at high RPMs, and there is abrasive material in that compound, and it can hurt if you whack your fingers with it for too long. So keep an eye on your hand position. Also keep in mind that it's kicking off flakes of dust, and so you're going to want to wear a mask and or be at our hood where the negative draft is going to draw the air away from you. Polishing can take a long time, so do this as long as it's fun. I wanted to leave enough time to think about color, and at this point all I want to think about is how, even without a great deal of artistry, a little bit of color can go a long way towards transforming something that you've made out of one material into something more complex. Okay, hopefully this project gives you a sense of the fundamentals of Fusion, CAD, CAM, and CNC machining, and hopefully it clarifies that this is quite a journey. Nobody learns how to do this overnight. It takes repeat visits over a period of weeks and then months to get good at this stuff, and so if it's taking you a moment to grapple with each of these new concepts, welcome to the club. We all have to go on this journey together.